I've spent $1 billion on Facebook ads and Google ads. I was there at the beginning. Our mission of creating 1 million jobs. Top 5 largest family law firms. Don't argue with me. Like, your website takes 12 seconds to load. Google scores you with a 17 and you didn't claim your knowledge panel, or your Facebook pixel's not there. Like, how are you going to argue any of these things? So a knowledge panel is what Google shows if it has high enough certainty about a particular object that it can show all the things associated with it. As far as I can tell, Chris, no offense, you haven't done that. So no. Google is not really sure who you are, because it sounds like it does, but it doesn't understand the structure of information. It's so easy, it's so basic, it's so obvious, it's so fast. They think they know everything. 99% of them have never heard of this. There's a difference between someone who's really good versus someone else who just happens to have a license. The knowledge graph, it's not them, it's the connections they have. So the most common issue is they go in and try to claim it and they get rejected. That's not good enough. You have to show that there's a justification. It just has to be tied together the right way. They never bothered to have a personal brand website. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not have control over your results?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today we're exploring digital marketing strategies with Dennis Yu, CEO of BlitzMetrics and an expert in leveraging search engines for business growth. Welcome to the podcast, Dennis.
Good to see you, Chris.
Thank you very much. So do you mind just starting by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background in marketing?
I'm a search engine engineer. I built the analytics at Yahoo 20 some years ago. So we worked on a lot of data, and I'm a math and analyze the data, figure out patterns kind of guy. I've spent $1 billion on Facebook ads and Google ads. I was there at the beginning. I just think that everything should be recipes and pattern driven. So when I see local, when I see agencies, when I see service businesses, I see patterns in how we can easily organize their customers, organize their marketing, fix where they're wasting money on ads. I see these recurring sorts of patterns. So I'm not a creative person. I'm not someone who's like really whatever these other kinds of skills are, but I'm probably the most SOP-oriented digital marketing person out there. I mean, you could ask anyone out there. I'm pretty sure we have more SOPs and we're more like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 checklists than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And I love sharing all of it and just publishing all of it. If you Google me, you'll see it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're a data guy. I noticed on X recently you posted that you were doing some audits for local law firms, I think. You also have BlitzMetrics. I think you do a lot of talking as well, talks, and your academy as well, so training. So where is your focus currently?
So for me to hit our mission of creating 1 million jobs, we're a quarter of the way there, which is really cool, largely because of the Philippines. I'm not going to be able to hire 1 million people through my companies. So when we empower local agencies, each one in a particular vertical. So we have one that just does pest control. That's Danny Lebrand. We have one that just does roofing, Keegan Carthy, or one that just does restoration, or the legal one that you mentioned, Liam Hughes, whose father runs one of the top 5 largest family law firms in America. Family law, like divorce, child custody, that kind of thing. As those firms grow, they need to hire more people, and they'll use our SOPs to hire people from the Philippines, from Pakistan, from South America, and that creates more jobs. And that's what I like to see. And when there's a clear standard on how you audit the website or audit the ads, then it's no longer voodoo. It's no longer someone else's opinion. It's not proprietary. It's like going to the doctor and getting an MRI, right?
Yeah.
It's not a mystery. Like, Chris, you could step on the scale and you could tell me how fit you are, but if the scale registers that you are 300 pounds and you are 5'2", you are fat. Right? I just love having the standard. And you've probably seen, like on Twitter and LinkedIn, there are people that want to argue with me when I do this audit. I'm like, don't argue with me. Like, your website loads, it takes 12 seconds to load, and Google scores you with a 17. Well, I didn't say that number. That's Google's tool. Right? And, you didn't claim your knowledge panel, or your Facebook pixel's not there. Like, how are you going to argue any of these things? Right?
Yeah. Actually, speaking of, I've just done the 75 hard, which is 75 days. Yeah. And I didn't lose too much weight, so I'm doing it again. I'm doing it in between conferences. That's my plan.
Okay. But it's not the weight loss, it's the discipline. That's really what people get out of the 75 hard.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And my
the
wife
water is the one that got me. That was just difficult for me.
Oh, you did it as well. Yeah, the water was hard. But I tell you what, reading a physical book is something. I mean, I devour the podcasts and audiobooks, but a physical book has just been an absolute treat every day. Something I've been look forward to. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into local then for the basis of this podcast. I imagine you see a lot of local businesses. You do a lot of audits. I'm really interested. We've had a number of guests on this podcast talking about local. It seems to be something that local business owners, obviously, they're not SEOs, but there is so much opportunity for them to grow their businesses, to get more leads, to get more clients, to make more money. And there are not too many variables, I think, to getting local right, but there are things that you have to do. So why don't we start with talking about knowledge panels? Can you explain what a Google knowledge panel is for those that don't know?
So a knowledge panel is what Google shows if it has high enough certainty about a particular object that it can show all the things associated with it. So if I do a search for Chris Pantelli using the knowledge graph, which I did, because Google's got an API in this, there are 32 results for your name. And there's other people that have the same name as and similar names. And there's this Chris Pantelidis guy. There's these other Chris Pantellis. And these are all different sorts of people that do different things. And some of them are actually you, and some of them are not. So a knowledge panel is what can Google say that they're very sure about. So if I know that you run Linkify, if I know that you have a podcast, if I can clearly tell these are other guests that you've had, and these are things that you've done, and I can associate that with your LinkedIn, for example. So I found you went to University of Liverpool. You have a degree in business economics, and you also run Life Upswing and a small fast food business. Okay. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things about you, right? So what Google's trying to do, and this sounds kind of ridiculous, but you would think Google would just, the omniscient brain would just know everything. But it's not exactly clear because there's so many other Chris Pantellis that do different things. Like we don't know, is it this Chris or that Chris, and is it you? And so you trigger a partial knowledge panel. And when I looked you up before this podcast, because I always do, and we all look up people before we meet them, right? That's the smart thing to do. I noticed that you have not claimed your knowledge panel. So you need to get verified with Google, which is not verification on Instagram and TikTok and whatever. It's really proving to Google that you are who you say you are. And then that allows you to then claim your knowledge panel once you get verified through Google. And then you can start to have a full knowledge panel and then train Google on who you are and tie it in with the different businesses and the things that you do and your educational background and who your friends are and industry people and all that. But as far as I can tell, Chris, no offense, you haven't done that. So Google is not really sure who you are.
So how would I go about doing that? What's the process of that? And what's the benefits for me, Chris Pantelli, to go out there? How is that going to affect me, my business, if I take the steps to start that process?
So let's talk about Chris Pantelli or anyone who is a local service business owner. So when I was at Yahoo 20 some years ago, there were not, and even today, there's not that much information about the millions of small businesses in the United States or UK or whatnot. And the information that we did have about people were created by random people in other countries that were just making up things on the webpage. There's very little actual meat, if you will. Raw, actual information like pictures and videos and facts and clients and their office, and there's just so little. I mean, the cell phone allowed for more capture of this, reviews and this sort of thing. But when we think about a local business, it sits inside what we call a geo-vertical grid. So you have all these different cities. Let's say in the United States, you have Los Angeles and Seattle and Chicago, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Atlanta. You have all these different sorts of areas, right? And then you have all these different areas of expertise. Like you'd be a plumber, an electrician, a lawyer, a chiropractor, a veterinarian, concrete coating polisher. There's all these different categories. So any business is going to live at the intersection of one, Geo, Atlanta, and, personal injury attorney, right? So me as a search engine, I'm trying to understand, is this a spammer that's just creating all these bogus sites about personal injury attorney? Did you get in a car accident? Do you want to get paid, or all these things, right? And trying to understand, is that actually a real personal injury attorney? What kinds of signals would I be looking for? And then are they actually in Atlanta? So any local business has to satisfy the geo category grid because they have to show that they are in that profession and they have to show that they're in that particular city. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at two different signals that actually cross. So if I am like Liam Hughes and I work at Rocket Clicks and I'm an agency that serves family law firms and my number one client is Sterling Lawyers, who's my dad, right? Jeff Hughes, and they're in Chicago, then what kind of signals should Google expect to see from a law firm that has 30, 40 attorneys in Chicago and other offices? Well, if we look at their LinkedIn profiles, if we look at their cases, if we look at the traffic that comes to the website, because Google had to reveal that the Chrome click data they actually use in SEO. They look at the social media data, right? All of this, I need to see a signal. Like if all this traffic's coming from India or from, Portland, Oregon instead of Chicago, but they say they're a Chicago family law firm, that doesn't look right? So I need to see like geographically that actually lines up. It's like a lie detector test. Like stop trying to lie to Facebook or lie to YouTube or lie to Google. And then I need to see that everything actually checks out. Like, oh, well, if I'm doing child custody and divorce and whatnot, like this example that you pointed out with my friend Liam, then I should see that people are coming in on those particular queries. Like, how do I, get custody of my child? And what if I don't have a prenup? And all the kinds of questions they ask here in America, right? I should be able to see that there are people from those cities in Chicago asking questions about how do I get a divorce and how much does it cost and all that kind of stuff, real questions that I'd expect. And then when people come and watch my videos or they engage in my social posts, that the behavior looks good. It doesn't look like a bot is coming in and just clicking on stuff to try to trick Google, right? Okay. Or it's not just pictures of your puppies on social media just to generate a bunch of clicks and you bought 1,000 fake followers on Fiverr or whatnot. Like, no, I need to see a real signal from those real users having real engagement. And then that sends a signal to the search engine. So me as the search engine over all these years, I was looking for that signal. And the most frustrating thing for me, Chris, was there was so little signal. So anyone who had even any signal, even now in 2024, would beat all the other folks who just had no signal because we couldn't place them in their category or in the city that they operated in. Does that make sense?
My question is, if we, from a user perspective, would you say that the knowledge panel is for verification of the user? So if a user is in Chicago and they're looking for a lawyer, chances are they're going to be using search terms like lawyers in Chicago, family law in Chicago, let's say. They're going to see a number of different Chicago-based family law firms that have got Google business profiles.
Sure.
So where does the knowledge panel come in? Is that for
So the knowledge panel, remember, is the representation of everything that the search engine knows about that object. So the law firm should have a knowledge panel, in this case, like a local panel, and all the social medias that are attached to it, all the articles, the conferences, the books, the speaking, all that kind of, the billboards, all the things that they're doing tied. So it's all tied together inside the knowledge panel. So Google has all this information. So if you look at the entire database, that's called the knowledge graph, right? It's not a filing cabinet. It's really like this giant molecule. And as more information comes in, Google's trying to tie those attributes, like a particular person, for example, or a place that a certain thing happened, or a picture that was taken somewhere. Like, there's objects that are associated together with other objects. And then that's what the knowledge graph is the connections between all these objects. So if I am Googling Liam Hughes, who's the son of the founder of the big law firm, and the son is working at an agency, then those are all different objects that are connected together. There's the law firm, there's the agency that serves all the law firms, there's the people that work for the law firm, there's the people that work at the digital agency. You see how there's all these connections? We're trying to make those connections clear to Google. And if you are not explicitly super clear, Google, I'll just show the results as a typical list of 10 things as people see, or if I'm pretty certain that this is accurate, I'm going to show a knowledge panel, which is having it all organized, right?
Okay. So a local Chicago-based law firm, let's say with 20 lawyers, the firm itself has a local knowledge panel, but none of the lawyers have claimed their personal knowledge panels.
Which is true 99% of the time.
Yeah. Okay. So is this an easy win? Is this something that
it's a no-brainer. Like, it should just be done. It's not even worth arguing. It takes no effort. It costs no money. You don't have to pay anyone to do it. It's not complicated.
Okay.
And
so how
we publish articles, and you could, Google, BlitzMetrics, knowledge panel, how to claim a knowledge panel, Dennis, you'll see tons of articles and videos where I just walk exactly how to do it. I go through all the use cases, all the exceptions. What if a celebrity has the same name? What if, the other person's died? What if you own multiple businesses? I've covered all of that.
Okay. And the benefits then of, let's say, these 30 Chicago-based lawyers working for this local Chicago law firm, all 30, 0 knowledge panels. Okay. Over the course of a couple of weeks, they all claim their individual knowledge panels. That's adding data points to the knowledge graph, I assume. And then it's going to bolster the positioning of that individual law firm. Google's going to feel more confident to put it higher in the SERPs.
Yeah, of course. Because your ads are going to perform better. Because when people Google the firm, instead of just having a local service ad or a regular Google ad or one listing among all the other attorneys, you might just trigger a whole knowledge panel. Or you might get all these other rich snippets that are tied to that. And, people talk about featured snippets, which is like showing pictures and videos and news and tweets. And people also ask, and knowledge panels, those are all different components that can show up in search results, including when people are asking ChatGPT or Anthropic or, Bing or whoever they're asking. If you get the knowledge panel and all that correct, that also influences the AI results. And I've seen friends of mine get clients because someone will ask the AI, who should I need to hire a lawyer. I need to hire someone to build a pool in my backyard. Who should I hire? Well, consider this one guy, and this guy, right? And because they have their stuff organized properly on Google, they get recommended in the AI. Isn't that cool, Chris?
That is awesome. I've had a number of guests on where this has been a contentious issue. I would love to know if this is circumstantial or if you have hard data that the LLMs are taking training data from Google's knowledge graph. But can you give us some insight into that?
Well, think about it this way. There's this thing called the 4 horsemen, which is not the Bible doomsday 4 horsemen, but the idea that there are layers that are built on top of each other. So I'm speaking as a search engine engineer. There are all these social networks, right? LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all this kind of stuff. And that's where most of the information is being generated, just because of the nature of the news feed and, people are connecting with each other. A lot of that is what's feeding Google. And a lot of what's feeding Google as another layer above goes into the AI. So ultimately, the AI is digesting what it can pull out of the structured database that is Google, the knowledge graph, which also includes all the nodes that come from the social networks. Because when you look at an LLM, most people don't realize that it's just a probabilistic calculate the next word in the sentence kind. It keeps calculating probabilistically the next word, right? It doesn't have an idea of what is true or not true. And it doesn't understand, amazing. I mean, you think it does because it sounds like it does, but it doesn't understand the structure of information. It doesn't understand what we in the search world call the canonical, which is like, this is, the Eiffel Tower. This is the one. This is the actual Eiffel Tower. These are pictures of the Eiffel Tower. These are people that have been to the Eiffel Tower. Like the LLM doesn't understand the structure. But it sounds, it's so good. You don't realize it's just calculating one word at a time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it absolutely is reliant upon the structure that comes from the search engines. And the search engines are reliant upon social media. If you had a special nuclear bomb or whatever that could like wipe out all the social networks, but just the social networks, that would also, what do you think would happen to the search results? They would be diminished, right? Okay. If you wiped out all the social networks, what would happen with AI answers? They would be pretty weak, right? So all these layers are built on top of each other.
And so what you're saying then as well is we have the ability to put ourselves into that structured data by claiming our knowledge panels and ensuring that we are giving the information that we want, controlling the narrative about ourselves, who we are, what we do, where we're from.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's so basic. It's so obvious. It's so fast. But people just have this block, especially people that claim to be SEO experts or digital marketing or social media people, because they think they know everything. And 99% of them have never heard of this. It's hilarious.
Are there any professions in particular where you think this is particularly important?
Any of the ones where reputation and referrals and research are important, where there's a lot of research. So things that are transactions that are more than $10,000. So if you want to build a custom house, you're not just going to do a Google search on custom house city name. You're going to be talking to your friends. You're going to talk to some architects. You're going to see homes that are built by other people. You're going to be, there's research, there's reputation, there's Googling going on, and, a personal injury attorney or a landscaper or maybe a commercial roofer or anything where someone is skilled. And there's a difference between someone who's really good versus someone else who just happens to have a license. Then the knowledge panel is important. But most of these folks doctors and lawyers especially, they're sort of afraid of social media, or they're afraid of like putting themselves out there because they think like, oh, I don't want to boast or show off my watch or my house, or I don't want to be one of those social media people trying to have 1 million followers and talk about how rich I am, right? And so that's a stumbling block, because really it's not anything to do about them. The knowledge graph is not them. It's the connections they have with the firm. It's the fact that they're part of a charity. It's their daughter, if they want to show the daughter won a scholarship. It's their connection to other firms when they want to honor other businesses, when they want to honor the secretary who just celebrated 15 years working at the firm. It's a way that the knowledge graph, that the knowledge panel for each of their people, for their firm, for their office, right? All the objects. The power of the knowledge graph is not how much information you can jam in there. It's not reputation management like burying negative reviews. It's how connected you can show that you are in the geo-vertical grid that I mentioned, right? How connected are you to other businesses and initiatives, and you're, a mile away from the big park, or, whatever it might be. And here's other businesses that you work with. You work with the chiropractor and the guy who does spinal cord exams, and whatever it might be, right? There's all of the, if there's referrals, if it's like real estate agents and mortgage brokers. That's a clear one, right? Okay. There was a big flood here in the last few days. You probably saw in North Carolina. And there's a lot of people that their foundations got ruined and their houses got, blown away. And that's creating a lot of damage that has to be repaired by a bunch of contractors. And all these contractors refer each other, the electrical contractors, foundational contractors, the plumbing and restoration services, right? Those are all high ticket things. So certainly if you have a knowledge panel show up, wouldn't it be better, Chris? I mean, how do you calculate the ROI of if you're just like one of the many listings, or if this whole thing shows up? Like, you ever go to the mall and there's like an anchor, like a Macy's or whatever, where like it's a huge part of the mall versus like one little store inside the mall. That's the way we look at it.
Okay. I imagine then there are many lower ticket, lower tier professions then where this is ripe for opportunity. So home services businesses, these sorts of things, people that just simply claiming a knowledge panel, maintaining it, are going to just jump leaps and bounds ahead of the competition in their local area. So you've already said that people can go and search how to do this on the YouTube. Can you give us any sort of really granular tips on claiming it, and then some of the common issues that you see, and how to battle against that?
So the most common issue is they go in and try to claim it and they get rejected. Usually a few hours later, they get the email from Google saying, sorry, we cannot approve this thing here. And it's because they didn't fill out the form properly. So it's deceptively simple, because it says, why do you want to claim this knowledge panel? And most people say, well, because I'm Chris Pantelli, right? And I want to have my knowledge panel. That's not good enough.
Right.
You have to say, it's because I serve this community at Linkify, and our clients are Googling me, and, I'm also doing this thing with Life Upswing, and here's why it's important. And so, other people are Googling these sorts of issues, or there's this other Chris Pantelli who talks about this other thing. And so you're trying to show that you don't have to be a celebrity or a big public figure, but you have to show that there's a justification beyond just like, well, it's because it's me and I just want to have it, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other thing too is most people, they'll just say, well, I don't want to touch anything digital. I'm just going to send it to my agency, marketing, whatever kind of consultant person. They're less likely to get approved. It's always better if you are the person claiming it, but then you've got to submit, a photo ID showing that it's you. You have to show a login to your LinkedIn and Instagram, 5 of these. And it's just better to do that on desktop. Some people, maybe they're a prominent business owner, but digitally, there's really not much about them because they choose to have a private life and they don't want to show their kids, which is fine, totally fine. You can still have knowledge panel and all that. And so they don't realize that it's not about trying to become famous or a celebrity. It's merely equipping Google with factual information about where you went to school and how old you are and, how many people are in your firm and the name of the book that you wrote and a conference that you spoke at. And those are factual sorts of things that it can verify. So we're not trying to trick Google, which is why we don't like to say SEO. When you say SEO, it implies we're trying to trick Google and try to fool it and try to push bad results down. No, we're trying to connect factual information back to Google so it can see this. And when you understand that, you realize I probably already have a lot of it. I probably have created a lot of content from a long time ago. It just has to be tied together the right way, right?
Okay.
Not inventing new stuff with AI tools. Like, oh, write an article about the 10 ways on how to have a pain-free divorce. No, that AI can do that, but that has nothing to do with showing the authenticity of who you are, and so that you have multiple corroborating loops about, here's Chris Pantelli on Instagram, on the Freelancer FAQ, on Medium, on all, like, are all of those Chris Pantelli, or is it another Chris Pantelli? Make it super, super clear. So we created we're just giving away for free, a whole WordPress template basically, and a plugin that allows you to leverage all of this, including using schema the right way, which is like how you categorize information on each of your web pages.
Okay.
Just to make it easy, because I just want people to do it. We're not even,
So this is control that you would have on your own website, schema about yourself, and then that structured data can be seen by Google. Is that necessary for claiming a knowledge panel then?
It depends on how much competition there is. If you have a super common name, then the bar's a little bit higher because you have to disambiguate. Most people, what they do is they never bothered to have a personal brand website. So if I were you, I would have had chrispantelli.com. And if someone else has got that, I'd do the .co or chris-pantelli.com. And because they don't have their personal brand website, they have their business website. And then the about section, they talk about, oh, this is about Chris, right? Well, that's not good enough, because the business, even if you're a solopreneur, even if the business is just you, the business is a separate object from the person. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they have to be on separate websites, because you as a person, you like to play golf, you like to eat, you also are involved in this charity, you also run this business, right? And then you have a small fast food business, and then you have Life Up. So each of those businesses should have its own website, and then you as a person needs to have a separate website. If you put your bio, your personal bio on the about of the company, do you see how that creates confusion?
Okay, understood. You talk about claiming a knowledge panel. So Chris Pantelli, I think there's a guy, I'm half Cypriot. I think there's a Cypriot guy who owns a sewing machine repair company. And then I think there's another one.
Let's say
yeah, there's a few. Okay, let's say I was in the next Scorsese movie for some bizarre reason, okay? I assume Google's going to auto-generate a knowledge panel for me if I blow up and become famous. Is that...
Probably, yeah.
Let's say that happens then. Let's say for whatever reason, you've got a knowledge panel. Should you always claim the knowledge panel, or if it's just there, just sort of leave it?
I think it's always better, like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not have control over your results? Okay. Why not update it? Sometimes it shows the wrong photo. Sometimes it has information that's not correct. Because, people will write all kinds of blogs about me or whatever, and it's just not right.
Not right, yeah.
Just want to make sure it's correct, right? Or maybe you don't want to feature this, you want to feature this other thing that you care about, but it pulled some news about you from 5 years ago, and you don't do that anymore, right?
Okay, right, understood. So just briefly, because I'm fascinated by the common name issue. Let's say we does Google ever show multiple knowledge panels for the same person?
It can show multiple snippets. And you'll see a lot of those as featured snippets, and you'll see a lot of them as rich kind of results where you do a search on someone's name, and sometimes you'll see some social media things, you'll see a video, you'll see some news, and that's that whole universal search where Google's trying to show like a bunch of different things, which could be all about that one person. So if you Google me, you'll see all that kind of stuff, but it's all me. I own everything. You keep scrolling, like I own the whole thing, right? But if there's multiple people and it's not sure, then it'll show a mix of all these things. And it'll show a mix of different social media profiles. And then of course they want to put in some YouTube and things like that they control.
So, I mean, it's beneficial really to not have a common name if possible.
Yeah, because it's less harder. But you still need to organize all your information. So there's some friends of mine that are very famous and they have unique names, but they didn't organize their information. Like Jay Abraham, like that guy is super well known in the world of marketing, but he didn't claim his knowledge panel. He's written a ton of books and spoken at a ton of conferences, but because he didn't organize it properly and didn't claim it, Google was confused. So we finally got that done last month.
Okay. How long does it take, would you say? Let's say, obviously after this conversation, I'm going to go and do this after speaking with you, Dennis.
The initial piece will take you 10 minutes. And then on an ongoing basis, look, if you're producing content, you're interviewing people like here on a podcast, and then you repurpose this. So, you understand what I mean by repurposing, right? So there's a video, but you also put it to YouTube, you turn it to a blog post, you take social media snippets, you post it to all the different podcasting places, right? If you post that content to multiple places, that sends multiple corroborating signals. Then you could, for example, say, You could just document what you did, for example, to get your knowledge panel, kind of like a before and after. And then we could put that as a guest post on one of my sites, which has got really high authority. Like I own the #1 free ebook site on the web with 1 million visitors a month and a DR 76, which for SEO people, that's really high, right? That's like a major media site.
That's nice.
And we feature you. That sends a strong signal. It's like a vote, right? I don't need to tell you how links work, but that's a strong vote. And then that's legit because I have an ebook site. And if we turn what you've done into an ebook, that's not, parasitic linking, right? That's
okay.
legit.
You've mentioned links, Dennis. This has been awesome. We're coming into the final stages of the podcast. I wanted you to just tell me a little bit about what geo-vertical grids are. So
you have a vertical line and you have a horizontal line. So the vertical is the industry that you're in, plumbing, right? You're a pest control company, right? And then the horizontal line is the neighborhood or the city. So you're in New York City, you're in Chicago, you're in whatever it is. And what you want to do is build connections in your city. So who are all the other businesses that you do something with, or organizations, or little league football, baseball teams, other things that you're a part of, to build those connections. And so you establish your geo city footprint. And then when you go to a conference, say you're a plumbing company, and you meet a whole bunch of other plumbers, you make little 1-minute interviews, you do a podcast like you're doing, Chris, to establish industry authority. And if you happen to turn these little podcasts into guest blog posts at some, and this is where you can use AI, because people normally speak kind of all over the place and you try to translate the raw transcript, it doesn't come out nice, but the AI can turn it into a nice article. And that's a legitimate article because it was based on true EEAT, real experience, and then it generates a legitimate backlink. So I happen to have thousands of folks I work with that are in different verticals, and we have them interview each other because they meet ideally in person at conferences and whatnot. And then our team of VAs processes these thousands of videos and whatnot into mini guest blog posts like honoring Chris Pantelli. So maybe we write one on how Chris Pantelli got his knowledge panel in 5 steps. Right? And we document real proof, not AI generated, but this is what you actually did, a few screenshots, and then the AI sort of fills in the context, right? And then we generate a DR76 link to you. So if you're a local business and you're a plumber, why wouldn't you want to have links from all these other plumbers? But from actual articles, when you talk about broken toilets and, clogging and foundation repair, like all these things were not like footer links or this sort of nonsense where people are clearly selling garbage that's not relevant, right? But you write an article about installing a new toilet, and someone else wrote an article about installing a toilet, and you link to them in text in the body. That's legit, right? That's completely white hat. I've run this by my other friends who work at Google and whatnot. They've all said that's completely legit. That's not selling links or anything like that.
So break this down to me. So are you facilitating this? I don't want to use the term link exchange because that's clearly
right.
not what it is.
None of those words that are bad words, yeah.
Yeah. To me, what it sounds like is like an actual legit version of the garbage sort of guest post blog with zero value, whereas you've actually been to a conference, you've met other plumbers, you've had a real conversation, and then you're providing real content for each other and right. With the link. Yeah. So, but right. How is the facilitation of this happening? Is that something you can do industry by industry, or is this? Yes,
it's very easy because we found that if we tried this before 10 years ago and it was a disaster because we made it too complicated. Because Dennis was thinking, I'm going to make it the most amazing thing. It was just too complicated. Okay. I mean, I was with good intention. So we boiled it down to when you meet someone at a conference, you pull out your cell phone and you just do, hey, I'm here with Chris Pantelli. And Chris, what did you learn about, the session on whatever it is, or why are you here at the conference, or what do you think is going to occur in 2025, or I just want to recall the story about how you and I were, just 1-minute interviews. You ask like one question, right? And that's all it takes. We don't need to have like a 1-hour podcast kind of thing. Why? Because if you look at the keyword difficulty of, Dallas, Texas, air conditioning repair. I mean, what's the keyword difficulty of that? Like 12? It's not like it's super competitive, right? Because it's a geo-vertical query. I'm not trying to rank for air conditioning repair overall. I'm just trying to rank inside my city. I'm trying to rank in the maps. I'm trying to rank in, YouTube and all these other places. So all it takes is a few small signals. So if I just make 1-minute videos with other colleagues of mine, just 1 minute, instead of taking a photo as you normally would do, just make a 1-minute video with so-and-so. And you don't even have to be knowledgeable. You can just ask them the question. If you don't know a question to ask, go look at your PAA. The people also ask, and then they can answer it. And so we found that works pretty well. And we're using a tool called Market Scale, which is a way that facilitates a lot of this. Then we have AI and VAs. We have an army of VAs
That was going to be my question, the facilitation of it. So I've just come back from a conference, Ibiza last week, Agency Hackers Conference. So quite a broad, not a very niche specific. So it wasn't like a plumbing conference for plumbers. But so if I'd have been there and did, let's say, more 1-2 minute video interviews with, let's say, 10 people, is that then 10 sort of legit guest post opportunities for me?
Yeah, I know. Most people who are like actual writers and journalists would cringe at that, saying like, how can you like, that's not enough meat. But you know what? Today, people are consuming short, sweet posts on their phone. You don't need skyscraper content that's 2,000 words on the 150 best ways to do, like, there's a time and place for skyscraper, this huge kind of content. But when you're just trying to talk about, roofing in Garland, Texas, like, that's not very competitive, because you only have to beat the other people in that geo-vertical, right? Mm-hmm. You only have to beat the other chiropractors in San Diego. Look at your competition, right? So simple blog posts can literally be just like an image with a few sentences. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's enough.
And as well, something that we do when we're doing our digital PR, obviously we utilize and harness the powers of AI, but what we do, one of the techniques is to like do a voice to note, which is essentially the same thing as like a 1-minute video interview. And just obviously like now I'm, can be bumbling your words, you can have ums and ahs and whatnot, but the actual content, the quality behind the content is unique, it's knowledgeable. And then if you ask the AI to rewrite that, but maintain the style and tone of the words, you can have a really short and sweet, perfectly written blog post that's not AI generated, like one click input, output, ChatGPT. Yeah. So
I err on the side of, you remember when Google 2 years ago changed EAT to EEAT, right? Adding the experience to expertise, authority, and trust. So what I like to do is I take those videos, edit it or not, and put them on YouTube, which is part of Google, and then embed that YouTube video in that blog post. Just because it's not necessary, because I've talked to a lot of people about that, but it's just like an extra layer of like, this is real, this is not AI generated, like this actually happened. I keep the metadata, EXIF data and all. And some people say it doesn't matter. I think it does to some degree.
Okay, awesome. And you can really see this sort of link building is having a positive effect. And also I suppose it's scalable and replicable, isn't it?
It is. So when agencies, so we have a bunch of agencies we work with, and each one specializes just in concrete coating or roofing or whatever it is. They have lots of the same kind of thing in that, because they focus on that one industry, but they have people, each of those people are in different cities. So it's very easy for us to say, okay, all the people in Los Angeles, they can kind of coordinate, and maybe they meet up on a Friday afternoon or something like that, or have their team members. Or we always find that they're all connected together in kind of an interesting way on LinkedIn or whatnot, right? The fact that we have, I don't want to say it's like a link exchange or network or whatever. Those are words that will get you in trouble. We can have these people collaborate, and we have teams of VAs that are there to kind of facilitate the friction of, because it's a lot of friction to like interview someone, then you got to edit the thing, and you have to like put it up on WordPress and choose keywords and tags and verify it, and like, so all these business owners have to do, or their staff have to do, is merely just take some pictures. They, assign it to some team members as they're going around fixing people's homes or whatever they're doing, and just put it in a central folder. And then our people pick that up. And they don't have to do anything after that. Our VAs, our AI tools handle everything from there. And then we used to teach people how to do that, but that just didn't work. So that we have to do it. Okay.
I think it's genius. You
probably learn the same thing, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's genius because we're all going to conferences, we're all networking, and most of us are utilizing our phones and those small conversations in order to get content and enhance our social profiles. So you're either on 1, 2, 3 networks prominently, and you'll be doing small little video. You'll be doing pictures if you can in order to grow your LinkedIn, to grow your Twitter. So why not just take that opportunity to also get a backlink and enhance your visibility on Google and strengthen your knowledge panel and all of that. It's like a no-brainer, really.
Exactly. And the other people see it as digital PR, where you're elevating them because, hey, today I'm here with Atiba de Souza, and here's something that Atiba taught me that I thought was really amazing. I just wanted him to explain this one thing in a little more detail. So Atiba, tell me what you meant when you said this thing, right? And then I'm interviewing him like a journalist, making him feel good. And then I'll say, I'd love to put that as a guest post on your site, honoring you, right? And they love that.
And you're aligning yourself and your personal brand as well with other well-known influential people in the industry, which further strengthens your personal brand, digital PR, link building, it all ties together. Yeah, it's great.
We put $1 a day against it too, so people see it, right? On Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Amazon, on all these places. Spend $7, $1 a day for 7 days. And they see it. They're like, wow, this is really amazing. I got 400 people who saw that thing, 10 people commented on, it's just, otherwise most people post stuff and no one sees it. That's the biggest problem with local businesses is the content gets made, but no one ever sees anything.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, this has been absolutely brilliant. I'm going to go off and find 10 minutes today then to start the Claiming My Knowledge panel. So if you could look back in a week's time, see if I've done it, see if I've done my homework. You can tell me off if I haven't.
Send me an email in 1 week and to hold yourself accountable, and then I'll review.
Awesome. And if any of our audience want to find you, where's the best place they can do that?
Google me. But if you like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, no, we have to practice what we preach. So if I'm telling you to be Googleable and I'm not Googleable, I'm a fat weight loss coach, right? And I'm here to answer people's questions. I'm not like so important, like I won't talk to you. Like I'll help. I want to see people do this thing correctly. Okay.
Awesome. Well, our fat weight loss coach. Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you.
Awesome, Chris. Appreciate you.
And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkify, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkify.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.